Kang Dae-ho adjusted his formal uniform for the third time in 10 minutes. The fabric felt strange against his skin, designed by alien tailors who had studied human anatomy, but still didn't quite understand how clothing should fit. He stood in the grand reception hall of the Galactic Council Station, surrounded by beings from dozens of worlds, and tried not to look as nervous as he felt. The station orbited a neutral moon called Velix Prime, far from Earth and far from anything remotely familiar. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Council 6 months ago, and Dae-ho was one of the first diplomats sent to establish permanent relations. Everything depended on making a good impression, on showing these ancient civilizations that humans belonged among the stars. The reception hall was enormous, with walls that seemed to shift colors based on the emotional state of the crowds. Right now, they pulsed with cautious yellows and cool blues. Not hostile, but not exactly welcoming either. Dae-ho had learned quickly that most species in the galaxy viewed humans with suspicion. Earth's history of warfare and violence had reached the Council long before humanity's official application for membership. He glanced at his wrist device, checking the time out of habit. The small screen showed 22:47 station time, which meant it was early morning back home in Seoul. His thumb hovered over the photo gallery icon, but he resisted the urge to open it. Not here, not with so many eyes watching. Ambassador Kang? A voice beside him spoke in perfect Korean, though the translator collar around the speaker's neck glowed softly. Dae-ho turned to face a being unlike anything he had ever seen. She stood roughly his height, with smooth pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the station's lights. Her eyes were large and dark, taking up much of her face, and she had no visible nose, just small breathing slits. 4 thin arms extended from her torso, each ending in delicate 3-fingered hands. "Just Dae-ho is fine," he said with a practiced smile. "I'm not technically an ambassador. More of a cultural liaison." "Cultural liaison," she repeated, as if testing the words. "I am Torilla of the Valax. I study newly contacted species for the Council's Xenobiology Department." She gestured with 2 of her hands, while the other 2 remained clasped in front of her. "Your species fascinates me. Humans are so different from the typical spacefaring races." Dae-ho felt his shoulders tense slightly. "Different how?" "Oh, not in a negative way," Torilla said quickly. "Just different. Most species that develop faster than light travel do so after achieving complete global unity. Humans accomplished it while still divided into separate nations. Your planet still has dozens of independent governments. It's remarkable, really." "Remarkable," Dae-ho echoed, unsure if that was truly a compliment. He'd heard similar comments before, usually followed by questions about human violence and aggression. But Torilla surprised him. Instead of interrogating him about Earth's wars, she asked about human culture, about art and music and literature. She wanted to know about Korean traditions specifically, about the food and festivals Dae-ho had grown up with. Her curiosity seemed genuine, without the underlying fear or judgment he'd encountered from other species. They talked for nearly an hour, moving from topic to topic naturally. Dae-ho found himself relaxing, actually enjoying the conversation. Then his wrist device vibrated softly. He glanced down at the notification and couldn't stop the small smile that crossed his face. "What is that?" Torilla asked, her large eyes focusing on his wrist. "Nothing important," Dae-ho said quickly, dismissing the notification with a swipe. "Just a message from home." "You check that device quite frequently," Torilla observed. There was no accusation in her voice, only curiosity. "I've noticed many humans doing the same. Are you monitoring something? A security concern, perhaps?" "No, nothing like that," Dae-ho assured her. He could feel his face warming, a human reaction that Torilla couldn't possibly interpret correctly. "We just like to stay connected with Earth. Time zone differences make it complicated." Before Torilla could ask more questions, Another human approached. Park Ji-woo, one of the security officers assigned to the human delegation, nodded respectfully to Terilla before speaking to Dae-ho in Korean. "Sir, the gathering is in 20 minutes. Lee Hanna said she'd meet us there." "Gathering?" Terilla's translator caller picked up the Korean words and converted them. "Is there a meeting I'm not aware of?" "Just an internal briefing," Dae-ho said smoothly. "Nothing official. We humans like to check in with each other regularly, make sure everyone's adjusting well to station life." Ji-woo's hand moved to his own wrist device, checking it briefly before nodding to himself. Terilla's eyes tracked the movement with clear interest. "I should let you go," she said. "But I hope we can talk again soon, Dae-ho. I'm compiling a comprehensive study on human behavior and culture. Any insights you can provide would be invaluable." After exchanging polite goodbyes, Dae-ho and Ji-woo made their way through the station's corridors toward the human quarters. The moment they were alone in an empty hallway, Ji-woo spoke in a low voice. "She was watching you pretty closely." "I noticed," Dae-ho replied. "She's a xenobiologist. It's literally her job to observe." "Still," Ji-woo said, glancing over his shoulder to make sure they weren't being followed, "we should be careful. The last thing we need is the council thinking we're hiding something." Dae-ho almost laughed at the irony, but kept his expression neutral. They reached the human quarters and entered through the secured door. Inside, a dozen other humans had already gathered in the common area. Lee Hanna, the medical officer, sat on one of the couches with her personal tablet, smiling at something on the screen. "All right, everyone," Dae-ho announced. "Let's make this quick. Who wants to go first?" One by one, the humans shared their updates from home. Someone's brother had just graduated university. Another person's mother had sent a care package that would arrive on the next supply ship. Hannah showed pictures from her sister's wedding that had happened last week. And then, inevitably, they started sharing the real reason they gathered like this several times a week. Dae-ho pulled up his photo gallery and showed the group a new video he'd received that morning. For a few precious minutes, surrounded by fellow humans millions of kilometers from home, he allowed himself to feel the ache of homesickness. He allowed himself to miss something so simple and so important that the thought of explaining it to aliens like Terilla filled him with embarrassment. Later, alone in his quarters, Dae-ho lay on his bed and scrolled through his gallery again. He knew he should sleep, that tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to represent humanity well. But instead, he watched the same videos over and over, his heart pulling toward a home that felt impossibly far away. He wondered what Terilla would think if she knew the truth. Would she understand? Would any of them? The questions kept him awake long into the artificial night, while outside his window, the stars of 1,000 alien worlds sparkled in the darkness. Terilla sat in her research lab, reviewing the recordings she had made over the past 3 weeks. The Galactic Council station had excellent surveillance systems, all perfectly legal and transparent, designed to help researchers like her study visiting species in their natural behavior. She had permissions, of course. Everything was official. But what she was seeing in the human behavior patterns troubled her. Her colleague, Grix, entered the lab, his crystalline body clicking softly with each movement. He was from a silicon-based species that communicated through light patterns and sound vibrations. The translator made his voice sound harsh and suspicious, though Terilla knew that was just how the technology rendered his language. "Still watching the humans?" Grix asked, his body flashing orange with concern. "You've been obsessed with them for weeks." "Obsessed is a strong word," Terilla replied, but she didn't look away from her screens. "I'm concerned. Look at this pattern. Every Earth day, at roughly the same time, the humans gather in their quarters. They stay for exactly 1 hour, then disperse. Perhaps it's religious?" Grix suggested. Many species have daily rituals. That's what I thought at first. But look at their behavior before and after these gatherings. They become emotional. Several show signs of distress beforehand, then appear either comforted or more upset afterward. And they're constantly checking their personal devices. Every few minutes, all of them. Torilla pulled up another recording, this one showing the human medical officer Lee Hanna in the station's medical bay. Hanna was alone, sitting at her desk during what should have been her break time. She stared at her personal device with an expression that Torilla had learned to recognize as sadness in humans. Then Hanna's face changed, brightening into a smile, and she touched the screen gently before looking around nervously, as if afraid someone might see. "What do you think she's looking at?" Grix asked. "I don't know," Torilla admitted. "But whatever it is, it's clearly important to them. Important enough to hide from us. You think they're hiding something dangerous?" Torilla's skin darkened to a troubled purple. "I think they're hiding something they don't want us to know about. Whether it's dangerous or not, I can't say. But humans have a violent history. What if they're planning something? What if they're coordinating some kind of military activity?" "That seems extreme," Grix said, though his body color shifted to a worried red. "The council vetted them thoroughly before accepting their membership. Did they?" Torilla turned to face him fully. "Humans developed faster than light travel, faster than any species in recorded history. They went from primitive rockets to warp-capable ships in less than 2 centuries. Most species take a millennium. What if they're sharing military secrets? What if those gatherings are strategy sessions?" Grix was silent for a moment, his light patterns flickering thoughtfully. "You should present this to the council. I don't have enough evidence yet. Just observations and concerns. I need to understand what they're actually doing." Over the next few days, Torilla increased her monitoring. She watched as small packages arrived for the human delegation on the weekly supply ship from Earth. The humans treated these packages with unusual care, carrying them quickly to their quarters and opening them in private. She documented Park Ji-woo receiving a box and immediately checking its contents, his expression shifting through several emotions too quickly for her to identify. She observed Tae-ho meeting with another human, Choi Yuna, in one of the station's gardens. They spoke in Korean, which the translator rendered, but their words seemed coded. They discussed new arrivals and sharing them with the others and making sure everyone gets equal time. Equal time for what? Yuna mentioned something about the brown one being her favorite, while Tae-ho laughed and said the orange one has more personality. Were they discussing weapons? Soldiers? The translator sometimes struggled with context, especially with human languages that relied heavily on implied meaning. Torilla decided she needed to take a more direct approach. She found Lee Hanna in the medical bay again, during another quiet moment. Hanna was once more staring at her personal device, her face soft with emotion. "Dr. Lee?" Torilla announced herself before entering fully. Not wanting to startle the human, Hanna jumped anyway, quickly putting her device face down on the desk. "Torilla?" "Hello, sorry, you surprised me. Do you need medical attention?" "No, I'm perfectly healthy," Torilla assured her, moving closer. "I was actually hoping to ask you some questions for my research about human psychology and behavior." "Of course," Hanna said, but her hand stayed protectively near her device. "What would you like to know?" "I've noticed that humans seem to experience what I believe you call homesickness more intensely than other species." Torilla began carefully. "Is this accurate?" Hanna's expression became guarded. "We do miss our home, yes. I think that's natural for anyone living far from their planet. But you have methods of coping with this homesickness, correct?" "I've observed regular gatherings, frequent communication with Earth, care packages being sent. These all seem to be very important to human well-being." "They are. Hana agreed, her voice quiet. What's in those packages? Torilla asked directly. What do you receive from Earth that's so vital to your mental health? For a moment, Hannah looked like she might answer truthfully. Her hand moved toward her device as if she wanted to show Torilla something. But then an emergency alert sounded throughout the medical bay. A worker from the engineering deck had been injured in an accident. Hannah immediately shifted into professional mode, calling for her equipment and rushing toward the emergency transport bay. Torilla was left alone in the medical office. Hannah's personal device still lying face down on the desk. She shouldn't look. It was a violation of privacy, technically against protocol, even if she was conducting official research. But Torilla's curiosity and concern had been building for weeks. What if the humans really were hiding something dangerous? What if her hesitation to investigate fully put the entire station at risk? She reached for the device. The moment her fingers touched it, the screen activated, recognizing that someone other than Hannah was handling it. A security lock appeared, requiring biometric identification. Torilla pulled her hand back quickly, her skin flushing with shame. What had she been thinking? That wasn't research. That was spying. But the brief moment the screen had been visible, she had seen something. An image, just for a split second before the lock engaged. Something small and furry with large eyes, looking directly at the camera. What was it? Some kind of Earth creature? A biological weapon, perhaps? But it had looked so harmless, almost cute by any species standards. Torilla left the medical bay quickly, her mind racing with more questions than answers. She returned to her lab and found Grix waiting for her, his body flashing urgent yellow. You need to see this, he said, pulling up new footage. I've been monitoring the human quarters. They just received another delivery. Look at how they're reacting. On the screen, Torilla watched as 6 humans crowded around several open boxes. They were laughing, passing objects between them, showing each other something on their devices. One of them, a young man she didn't recognize, had tears in his eyes while he smiled. What could make them react this way? Grix asked. What could be both happy and sad at the same time? Torilla thought about that brief image she'd seen on Hannah's device. She thought about the careful way humans handled their packages, the emotional gatherings, the constant checking of personal devices. She thought about Daeho's face when she'd asked him what he was hiding, how he deflected with humor, but couldn't quite hide the pain in his eyes. I don't know, she admitted, but I think we need to find out, before it's too late. That night, Torilla composed a preliminary report to the council. She didn't make accusations, not yet, but she outlined her observations and concerns. She recommended increased monitoring of human activities and suggested that the council might want to formally inquire about the purpose of these regular gatherings and mysterious deliveries. As she sent the report, Torilla felt a knot of worry in her core. She hoped she was wrong about the humans. She genuinely liked Daeho and had enjoyed their conversations. But her duty was to the safety of the station and the council. Whatever the humans were hiding, she would find out the truth. The summons came early in the morning, station time. Daeho was in the middle of his daily routine, having just finished a video call with his family back in Seoul, when the official notification appeared on his terminal. The Galactic Council requested his presence at a formal inquiry regarding human activities on the station. His stomach dropped. He immediately contacted Park Ji-woo and Choi Yuna, the anthropologist who had been advising the human delegation on cultural matters. They met in the conference room of the human quarters, the door sealed for privacy. This is bad, Ji-woo said, pacing the length of the room. They're formally investigating us. What did we do wrong? It's the gatherings, Yuna said quietly, reading through the inquiry document on her tablet. And the packages from Earth. They think we're hiding something dangerous. They've been monitoring us for weeks. Daeho felt a wave of embarrassment wash over him. Of course they'd been watched. This was a research station, and humans were the newest species here. He'd known they were being observed, but he'd hoped it would be casual, academic. Not this. Not a formal investigation that made them look suspicious and secretive. What do we tell them? Ji Woo asked. The truth? The truth sounds ridiculous, Daeho said, rubbing his face with his hands. How do we explain this to beings who might not understand? We'll look weak, primitive. They already think humans are too emotional, too violent. If we tell them what we're really doing, what we're really missing, they'll think we're not ready for space exploration. But if we don't tell them, Yuna countered, they'll think we're hiding something actually dangerous. We could lose our council membership. Earth could be barred from galactic society. The three of them sat in heavy silence, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. Daeho thought about his family, about the videos he watched every night before sleeping. He thought about Lee Hannah's tears when she talked about missing home, about Ji Woo's careful ritual of checking his photos every morning. He thought about every human on this station, far from everything they loved, trying to represent their entire species with dignity and strength. We need to talk to the others, Daeho finally said. This affects everyone. We should decide together. That evening, all 23 humans currently stationed on Velix Prime gathered in their common area. Daeho explained the situation, watching their faces shift from confusion to worry to resignation. When he finished, they sat quietly for a long moment. I vote we tell them the truth, Hannah said softly. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of feeling ashamed of missing home. Easy for you to say, another officer countered. You're not the one negotiating treaties. If they think we're weak, if they think humans are too dependent on their home planet, it could affect every diplomatic relationship we're building. But we are dependent on home, a young engineer named Kim Minho spoke up. We're not like them. We didn't evolve to be solitary explorers. Humans need connection. We need family, community, and yes, we need the things that remind us of home. That's not weakness. That's just who we are. The Council won't see it that way, Advi Wu argued. Most spacefaring species are individualistic. They don't understand the kind of bonds humans form. They'll think we're immature. Choi Yuna, who had been quiet during most of the discussion, finally spoke. I've studied 17 different alien cultures since we joined the Council. Do you know what I've learned? Every single one of them had to overcome some embarrassment when they first made contact with galactic society. The Valax, Tarilla species, were mocked for their need for complete darkness while sleeping. The Cortani were ridiculed because they have to return to water every few days. Every species has something that makes them different, something that seems strange to others. She stood up, addressing the entire group. We have a choice. We can hide what makes us human, pretend we're something we're not, and spend our time in space feeling ashamed and alone. Or we can be honest. We can show them that humans form deep emotional bonds, that we carry pieces of home with us wherever we go, and that this capacity for connection isn't a flaw. It's what makes us remarkable. Daeho looked around the room at his fellow humans. He saw the fear in their eyes, but also hope. They were all so far from home, trying so hard to prove humanity belonged among the stars. Maybe it was time to stop proving and start simply being. All in favor of full disclosure? He asked. One by one, hands went up. Not everyone agreed immediately, but eventually the vote was unanimous. They would tell the truth at the inquiry. Before the meeting ended, Daeho received a message on his personal device. It was from Tarilla, asking to meet him privately before the formal inquiry. He stared at the message for a long moment, then typed a reply, agreeing to meet her in the observation deck, The observation deck was one of Daeho's favorite places on the station. The transparent walls offered a view of Velix Prime below and the star field beyond. It was the closest thing to being outside, to feeling like the universe was vast and full of possibilities, rather than walls and corridors. Torilla was already there when he arrived. Her skin showed deep blue patterns that Daeho had learned indicated worry or concern. She turned as he approached, her large dark eyes reflecting the starlight. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I wanted to speak with you before tomorrow's inquiry. Privately, as friends, not as representatives of our species." "Are we friends?" Daeho asked, not unkindly. "You've been investigating me, Torilla." "Investigating all of us?" Her skin flushed darker. "I'm sorry. I should have been more direct with you from the start. But I was concerned. The patterns of human behavior seemed so strange, so secretive. I worried that you might be in danger, or that you might pose a danger to others. And now? Now I'm not sure what to think," she admitted. "I've watched you and your fellow humans for weeks. I've seen the way you care for each other, the way you check on one another's well-being. I've seen the emotion you show when those packages arrive from Earth. Whatever you're hiding, it's clearly important to you. Important enough that you'd risk looking suspicious to protect it." Daeho walked to the observation window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, impossibly far away, was Earth, was Sol, was his family and his home and everything he'd left behind when he volunteered for this mission. What if what we're hiding makes us look foolish? He asked quietly. What if it makes humans seem unfit for space exploration? Then at least we'll know the truth, Torilla said, moving to stand beside him. And I'll know whether I should stop worrying about you. He turned to look at her, this alien being who had become something like a friend despite everything. In her large eyes, he saw genuine concern, not judgment or suspicion, just concern. "If you're in danger," she continued, "if humans are suffering from something, we can help. The Council has resources, medical treatments, psychological support systems. We've helped dozens of species adapt to space station life. But we can only help if we know what's wrong." Daeho felt something shift inside him. All this time, he'd been afraid of being judged, of being seen as weak or primitive. But Torilla wasn't offering judgment. She was offering help. "Come with me," he said, making a sudden decision. "Come to the human quarters. I'll show you what we've been hiding. Just you, before the formal inquiry tomorrow. Maybe then you'll understand." Torilla's skin patterns shifted to a surprised yellow. "Now? Tonight?" "Now," Daeho confirmed. "But I need you to promise me something. Promise me you'll listen with an open mind. Promise me you'll try to understand, even if it seems strange." "I promise," Torilla said without hesitation. As they walked through the quiet corridors toward the human quarters, Daeho felt his heart racing. In a few minutes, he would reveal the truth. He would show an alien being the thing humans had been most carefully hiding, the source of their homesickness and secret gatherings and emotional attachment to packages from Earth. He just hoped she would understand. He hoped the entire galaxy would understand. Tomorrow, at the formal inquiry, humanity's place among the stars would be decided. But tonight, in this moment, all that mattered was honesty and the hope that maybe, just maybe, being truly human was enough. The door to the human quarters slid open with a soft hiss. Torilla followed Daeho inside, her skin flickering with nervous patterns of yellow and blue. She had brought her analytical equipment, a small handheld device that could scan for biological or chemical hazards. Whatever the humans were hiding, she wanted to be prepared. The common area was warm and filled with objects that seemed purely decorative. Images covered the walls, showing landscapes from Earth, groups of smiling humans, buildings and cities and natural wonders. Soft fabric covered the furniture, different from the standard station materials. Small plants grew in containers near the windows, their green leaves reaching toward the artificial lights. Your quarters are very different from other species' accommodations, Tarilla observed. We like to make spaces feel like home, Dayao explained. Humans are nesting creatures, I suppose. We collect things, we decorate, we create environments that comfort us. He gestured for her to sit on one of the soft couches. She did, finding it surprisingly comfortable despite being designed for a different body structure. Dayao sat across from her, his hands folded together, his expression nervous. Before I show you, he began, I need you to understand something about humans. We evolved as social creatures, more social than most species in the galaxy, according to your own research databases. We form bonds not just with our families or our communities, but with our environment, our possessions, and with other living things. I'm aware of human social bonding, Tarilla said. Your species forms what you call friendships with remarkable ease. It goes deeper than that, Dayao continued. When humans left Earth to come here, we didn't just leave behind our planet. We left behind everyone and everything we love. And for humans, that separation is physically painful. We ache for home in a way that's hard to explain. He pulled out his personal device and activated the screen. What I'm about to show you is what we've been hiding. Not because it's dangerous, but because we were afraid of how you'd react. We were afraid you'd think we were weak or immature or unfit for space exploration. Tarilla leaned forward, her analytical device ready. Dayao turned his screen toward her. On it was an image of a small creature with orange and white fur, green eyes, and pointed ears. It sat on what appeared to be a soft surface, looking directly at the camera with an expression that could only be described as content. This is a cat, Dayao said softly. Her name is Bomb. She's been part of my family for 8 years. Tarilla stared at the image, confused. I don't understand. This is an Earth animal, a non-sapient creature. Why would you hide images of wildlife? Because she's not just wildlife to me, Dayao explained. She's family. I raised her from when she was tiny. She sleeps in my bed every night. She greets me when I come home from work. When I'm sad, she sits with me. When I'm happy, she purrs. That sound, purring, it's one of the most comforting sounds in the world to me. He swiped through more images. Bomb sleeping in a patch of sunlight. Bomb playing with a toy. Bomb sitting in a box, just her face visible, looking annoyed and somehow still adorable. I've been away from her for 6 months, Dayao continued, his voice tight with emotion. 6 months of missing her, of wondering if she misses me too, of watching videos of her just to feel close to home. My sister sends me new pictures every week. That's what's in those packages you've been monitoring. Pictures, videos, sometimes a toy or a blanket that smells like home. Before Tarilla could process this information, the door opened and Park Ji-woo entered. He stopped when he saw Tarilla, then looked at Dayao with a question in his eyes. It's okay, Dayao said. I'm showing her. Ji-woo nodded and pulled out his own device. This is Dabu, he said, showing Tarilla an image of a large, fluffy white dog with black eyes and a tongue hanging out happily. He's a semiad. I got him when I was going through a difficult time in my life. He helped me heal. He gave me a reason to get up every morning, to go outside, to keep living. As if summoned by the sharing, more humans began to enter the common area. Word must have spread that the truth was being revealed. Lee Hana came in carrying her tablet, followed by Choi Yuna, Kim Minho, and others. One by one, they showed Tarilla their beloved companions, dogs of every size and shape, cats in countless colors and patterns. birds with bright feathers, small furry creatures called rabbits and hamsters, even fish swimming in tanks, and a lizard basking under a heat lamp. Each human spoke about their animal companion with love and longing in their voices. We domesticated these animals thousands of years ago, Una explained, her voice soft. We formed partnerships with them. They help us, and we care for them. But over time, they became more than just useful. They became our friends, our family. Humans bond with animals in a way that's difficult to explain to species that never developed similar relationships. Hannah pulled up a video on her tablet. It showed two cats playing together, chasing each other around a room, their movements playful and energetic. These are my cats, Nabi and Haru. I've had them for 5 years. When I'm stressed, I watch videos of them. It helps me remember why I'm here, why I'm doing this work. I'm building a better future for Earth, for my family, for them. Torilla's analytical device had been forgotten, hanging loosely in one of her hands. She looked from face to face, seeing the genuine emotion, the pain of separation, the love that crossed species boundaries. On her homeworld, the Valax formed bonds with their offspring and their mates, but these relationships were logical, based on survival and reproduction. This was different. This was emotional connection for its own sake. The gatherings you've been monitoring, Dio said, those are support groups. We share stories about our animal companions, show new pictures, talk about how much we miss them. It helps us cope with being so far from home. And the packages? Torilla asked, her voice quiet. Comfort items, Ji-Woo answered. Toys that smell like our companions. Treats we can give them when we video call home. Pictures to hang on our walls. Anything that helps us feel connected. The coded language you thought you heard, Una added with a small smile. We were talking about our pets. The brown one, the orange one, they're just descriptions of our animals. Nothing sinister. Torilla sat back, her mind racing to process everything. The mysterious human behavior suddenly made perfect sense. They weren't hiding weapons or plans. They were hiding love, hiding the depth of their emotional bonds because they feared judgment. You thought we would mock you for this? She asked. We thought you'd see it as a weakness, Deo admitted. Most species in the galaxy are more independent than humans. They don't form these kinds of attachments. We worried that if the Council knew how much we depend on these emotional connections, they'd think humans weren't ready for space exploration. A sound escaped from Torilla, a soft vibration that her species made when experiencing strong emotion. The translator rendered it as something like laughter, but gentler, more understanding. You're not hiding weapons, she said, wonder in her voice. You're hiding love. All this time, I was worried you were dangerous, and you were just missing your animal friends. It sounds silly when you say it like that, Hannah said, but she was smiling. No, Torilla said firmly. It's not silly at all. It's beautiful. She stood up, moving closer to look at the images on the walls, the pictures of Earth animals in all their variety. Dogs and cats, mostly, but also other creatures. Each one clearly loved, clearly missed. On my world, Torilla said quietly, we have nothing like this. We form bonds with our families, but they're practical, logical. We don't understand this kind of love, this connection that serves no survival purpose, but exists simply because it brings joy. I think that's what confused me most about human behavior. You do things not because they're logical or necessary, but because they make you happy. Is that wrong? Minho asked nervously. No. Torilla turned to face them all, her skin showing patterns of warm gold, a color that meant understanding and acceptance. I think it might be the most right thing I've ever seen. You're not weak for missing these creatures. You're remarkable for being able to form such deep connections at all. The tension in the room seemed to dissolve. Several humans wiped tears from their eyes. Daeho's shoulders relaxed for the first time in weeks. "So what happens tomorrow?" Ji Woo asked. "At the inquiry?" "Tomorrow," Tarilla said, "you tell the council the same truth you told me. You show them these images. You explain what these relationships mean to humans. And I will stand beside you and tell them that I was wrong to be suspicious. That what humans were hiding wasn't a threat, but a treasure." As Tarilla prepared to leave, promising to meet them before the inquiry, Daeho walked her to the door. "Thank you," he said simply, "for listening, for understanding." "Thank you for trusting me with the truth," Tarilla replied. "Human, what is that you're hiding?" She repeated the question that had started everything, but now her tone was playful, warm. "Nothing anymore," Daeho answered with a genuine smile. "Nothing at all." The council chamber was an impressive space, designed to accommodate beings of vastly different sizes and biological needs. The room was circular, with representative seats arranged in ascending tiers that circled a central platform. Lighting adjusted automatically for each species' visual range. The air contained multiple atmospheric layers, separated by invisible barriers that allowed everyone to breathe comfortably. Daeho stood on the central platform with Park Ji-woo and Choi Yuna beside him. 20 other humans sat in the gallery section, there to support their representatives. The weight of the moment pressed down on all of them. This inquiry would determine not just their fate on this station, but potentially humanity's entire relationship with the Galactic Council. Ambassador Vrex, a tall being with crystalline skin similar to Grix's, called the session to order. His body flashed formal blue patterns as he spoke, the translator rendering his words in clear, measured tones. "We are gathered to address concerns regarding the human delegation's activities on this station. Reports indicate secretive behavior, undisclosed gatherings, and suspicious deliveries from Earth. Humanity is still new to the Galactic Council. We must ensure that all member species operate with transparency and trust. Kung Daeho, you may present your response." Daeho stepped forward, his heart pounding. He had prepared a speech, carefully worded to be diplomatic and clear. But standing here, looking at the dozens of alien beings watching him with curiosity and suspicion, he decided to abandon the formal approach. "Honored council members," he began, "I want to start by apologizing. We humans have been secretive, and that was wrong. We should have been honest from the beginning. But we weren't hiding anything dangerous. We were hiding something we were ashamed of, something we thought would make us look weak or primitive." He activated the large display screen behind him. On it appeared an image of Bomb, his orange and white cat, sleeping peacefully in a patch of sunlight. "This is Bomb," he said simply. "She's not a weapon. She's not a military asset. She's my companion, my friend. On Earth, humans have relationships with other animals. We call them pets. We've lived alongside them for thousands of years. They share our homes, our lives, our hearts." More images appeared on the screen. Dogs and cats from every human on the station. The council members leaned forward, studying the creatures with evident curiosity. "When humans volunteered to come to this station, we knew we'd be leaving our families behind," Daeho continued. "But we also knew we'd be leaving these companions. And for humans, that separation is genuinely painful. We miss them. We ache for them. So we watch videos of them, we share pictures, we gather together to talk about them and remember them. That's what you've been monitoring. That's our big secret." He could hear whispers rippling through the chamber, translated into dozens of languages. Some sounded confused, others skeptical. Ambassador Vrex's crystalline body showed deep red, indicating strong emotion, though whether positive or negative, Daeho couldn't tell. Choi Yuna stepped forward to join him. In human culture, These relationships are not considered strange or shameful. They're celebrated. We write stories about the bonds between humans and animals. We create art depicting them. Children grow up learning responsibility and empathy by caring for pets. These creatures teach us about unconditional love, about loyalty, about the joy of companionship that asks nothing in return except kindness. But they're not sapient, a council member called out. A being whose species Daiho didn't recognize. They cannot consent to this relationship. Is this not a form of captivity? Park Ji-woo, who had been silent until now, spoke up. That's a fair question. And yes, in the early days of domestication, it might have started that way. But over thousands of years, these species evolved alongside us. They depend on us as much as we depend on them. My dog Dabu, he could not survive in the wild. He was bred for companionship. His entire species exists because of this partnership with humans. And in return, we provide for all his needs. We keep him safe. We love him. Lee Hana stood up from the gallery. May I speak? Ambassador Vrex nodded permission. Hana walked to join the others on the platform. I'm the station's medical officer. I've been monitoring the mental health of the human delegation since we arrived. The truth is, we've all struggled with homesickness. Depression rates among our crew were climbing. Anxiety was becoming a problem. But when we started our support groups, when we allowed ourselves to share our feelings about missing our pets, our mental health improved dramatically. These relationships, these bonds with our animals, they're not just nice to have. For humans, they're essential to our well-being. The chamber fell silent. Daiho watched the council members' reactions, trying to read alien body language and color patterns. Some still seemed skeptical. Others appeared thoughtful. Ambassador Vrex's color had shifted to a deep purple that the translator notes indicated was contemplation. Then, Torilla stood from her seat in the research section. May I also speak? Xenobiologist Torilla, you may address the council. Vrex allowed Torilla's skin showed determined green patterns as she moved to stand beside the humans. I was the one who reported my concerns about human behavior. I was the one who recommended this inquiry. And I was wrong. Not wrong to be curious, but wrong to assume that secrecy meant danger. She turned to address the full council. I spent weeks monitoring the humans, trying to understand what they were hiding. I was worried they might be planning something harmful. Instead, I discovered that they were hiding love. They were hiding vulnerability. They were hiding the very things that make them beautiful as a species. Her voice grew stronger, more passionate. Every species in this council has something that makes them unique. The Cortani need water immersion. The Valax need absolute darkness for rest. The Thorsians need to return to their homeworld's magnetic fields every year. We accept these needs as natural. Why should human needs for emotional connection be any different? Because emotional bonds with non-sapient creatures serve no practical purpose, another council member argued. They're inefficient. They make humans dependent on their homeworld in an impractical way. Do they? Choi Yuna challenged. Or do they make humans stronger? Our capacity to form bonds across species barriers, to feel empathy and love for creatures that can't even speak our language, that same capacity makes us excellent diplomats. It makes us compassionate. It makes us care about the well-being of others, even when there's no logical reason to do so. Ambassador Vrex's crystalline body suddenly flashed bright yellow, startling everyone. In his species, bright yellow indicated a sudden realization. He stood from his seat and moved to the central platform. I must confess something to this council, Vrex said, his voice carrying an unusual warmth. On my homeworld, in my dwelling, there grows a crystal formation that has been in my family for 12 generations. It is not sapient. It does not provide any practical benefit. but I have tended this crystal since I was young. I have watched it grow. When I am stressed or troubled, I spend time near it. The patterns of light it creates bring me peace." He turned to face Dai-Ho directly. "When I left my world to serve on this council, I had to leave that crystal behind. I miss it. I think about it often. I have images of it that I look at when I am homesick. Is this so different from what you humans feel for your animal companions?" The admission sent a wave of reaction through the chamber. Other council members began to speak up, sharing their own attachments. A representative from the plant-based Thornesian species described a grove of ancient trees near their spawning grounds. Trees they visited whenever they returned home. Trees that held deep emotional significance despite being non-sapient. A Cortani representative spoke of a specific coral formation in their home ocean, a place they had played as a child and still dreamed about. One by one, the council members revealed their own hidden attachments, their own emotional connections to things that served no practical purpose except to provide comfort and joy. The inquiry that had started as an investigation into suspicious human behavior had transformed into something entirely different. It had become a moment of shared vulnerability, of mutual understanding across species boundaries. Ambassador Vrex raised one crystal in hand, calling for order. "It seems we have all been hiding pieces of our hearts, afraid that others would see our attachments as weaknesses. The humans have taught us something valuable today. There is no shame in love. There is no weakness in missing what we hold dear." He turned to the full council. "I propose that instead of restricting human activities, we expand accommodations for all species. Let us create spaces where any council member can maintain stronger connections to their homeworlds. Let us acknowledge that beings of intelligence and emotion need more than just physical comfort. We need spiritual comfort, emotional comfort, the comfort of things that remind us of home." The proposal passed with overwhelming support. Within the hour, plans were being drawn up for new facilities on the station. A human recreation room would feature large screens showing live feeds from Earth animal shelters and nature cameras. The Valax would get meditation chambers with absolute darkness. The Cortani would have deeper water tanks. Every species would have space to honor what made them unique, what made them feel connected to home god. As the council session ended, beings from dozens of worlds approached the human delegation. They wanted to see more images of Earth's animals. They wanted to understand these relationships better. They asked questions with genuine curiosity rather than judgment. Torilla found Dai-Ho in the crowd. "You did it," she said, her skin showing proud gold patterns. "You changed the entire council's perspective." "We did it together," Dai-Ho corrected. "You were brave enough to ask the question. We were brave enough to answer honestly." Days later, the human recreation room opened. Dai-Ho stood inside, watching a live feed from a cat cafe in Seoul. On the screen, Bon was visible, playing with a toy his sister had sent her. He could see her moving, hear her purring through the speakers, almost feel her presence despite the impossible distance between them. Other humans gathered in the room, some watching their own pets, others simply enjoying the connection to Earth. But they weren't alone. Alien visitors came too, curious about these Earth creatures, charmed by their antics, beginning to understand what humans had known for thousands of years, that love doesn't require logic, that companionship doesn't need a practical purpose, that sometimes the things that matter most are the things that simply make us happy. Torilla entered the room and stood beside Dai-Ho. On the screen, Bon looked directly at the camera, her green eyes bright, almost as if she could see him looking back. "Human, what is that you're hiding?" Torilla asked with playful affection, using the question that had started their entire journey. Dai-Ho smiled, his eyes still on the screen, on his beloved companion so far away, yet somehow close. "Nothing anymore," he said. Want to see a video of her doing something stupid? Torilla's skin flickered with amused yellow. I would like that very much. As they watched together, human and alien, sharing this simple moment of joy, Daiho realized something profound. Humanity's place among the stars had never been in question. They belonged here not despite their capacity for love, but because of it. They belonged here not by hiding who they were, but by being brave enough to show their true hearts to the galaxy. And the galaxy, in all its vast diversity, had looked at humanity's truth and found it beautiful. Outside the window, the stars shone eternal. Inside the room, beings from a dozen worlds gathered to watch videos of Earth animals. They laughed at playing puppies and curious kittens. They asked questions about different species and their behaviors. They began to understand that connection, love, and companionship were not weaknesses to be hidden, but strengths to be celebrated. The human recreation room became the most popular gathering place on the station, not just for humans, but for everyone. It became a place where beings from across the galaxy could come together and remember that despite their differences, they all shared the same basic need, the need to love and be loved, to connect and be connected, to find joy in the simple things that make life worth living. And it all started because one alien girl asked a simple question, and one human was finally brave enough to answer with the truth.